of physically swapping the transmit and receive wires.
Go back and watch the whole video I stitched and part 1 as well. They're really, really good. She'll probably add this in part 3, which I'm looking forward to seeing. But one of the things that'll make it easier to make that crossover cable is the cabling standards, T568a and T568b, which when you look back at the diagram that she did, it swaps the transmit and receive on either end. So if you want to make a crossover cable, you just crimp one end as T568a and you crimp the other end as T568b. 568a was first created like in 1991, and the version that we know of now was updated like I think in 1995, which I think coincided with the release of Cat5 cable. So before 568a and b were ratified and introduced, in general hardware, and everybody knew about them, we would just take a piece of Cat 3 or Cat 5 cable and pick 4 wires and crimp them to 1, 2, 3, and 6 on both sides. It was extremely barbaric, and it was still very much the Wild West in those early networking days. In 1995, you were still choosing between getting 10 100 switches and just 10 megabit switches with a 100 megabit uplink. It was still cheaper to just buy 10 megabit NICs for desktops. My point is that the standard, the 568A, 568B, and the problems they solved didn't really matter as much in pre-1995 when you were using 10 megabits and half duplex, because a lot of us were still using hubs. Among the problems 568A and B would solve would be like crosstalk, and at short distances on half duplex hubs, that just didn't matter. If you look at all the new Keystone jacks, they've got a little sticker on the side that shows the 568A and 568B pinouts. Those Keystone jacks didn't exist, at least when we were crimping stuff in like 98, 99. But by the turn of the century, I know, right? We were seeing that stuff everywhere, and we had little cards that we would keep in our wallets that had the pinouts. And those cards were more of a novelty because those of us that had been doing it that long by then, we had to memorize things like the color order to punch down a 25 pair cable or a 100 pair cable. I never personally memorized the 25 pair cable punch down order, but we had telecom guys who could do it in their sleep. Anyway, this has been another episode of Nobody Cares, Old Man. Go back to sitting in your rocking chair. The nurse will be back in a minute.